Today, we're going to be working on a live editing session. I'm currently rewriting the first chapter of my book, The Last Scarecrow. We're going to be doing some writer's chat. We'll be talking about how do we start the first chapters, how do we start the beginning of our novels, and we'll be doing not one, but 2 writing sprints. So let's get some productivity in as well. Let's get some work done, and we're starting right now. Welcome to the Right Now community. I am Kauffman, and I'm on a mission to help the unpublished writers of the world with the process, lifestyle, and mindset that it takes to become an author. So we're going to be going into book writing and all the techniques that it takes to make it happen. All right, and what's up, ML? Welcome to the stream. Courtney, welcome, my friends. Happy Thursday, our earlier stream than normal. So Thursday is always my early stream, and it's always such a different vibe for me because I know I'm like, all right, I have to get into my writing mindset earlier in the day than I'm acquainted to. I'm always used to getting my writing in at night, so I'm like, okay, it's more of a push. It's more of a drive. So, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing to mix up when we get writing in because I feel like it challenges us to activate different parts of our creativity. If we're always used to writing at night, sometimes when you're writing in the morning, it gives you a different vibe for sure. So something that was on my mind today, I was thinking about what is the start of a novel and how do you start a novel? What's like the right way to start it? Now, over the weekend, I know we did the first page promise live stream, which was a lot of fun. We went into the first page, but the question that we ask ourselves, and this is what's so important, how do you know how to start the beginning of the novel? When I think about the beginning, I like to use a combination of 3 structural models for my writing. This is just my approach. I use a mix of the 3-act structure, hero's journey, and save the cat. I use a combination of those 3 systems to generally flesh out my novels, to develop the characters, and to craft the core story. So I think that's a strategy that works well for me. Now, when I'm thinking about the beginning of the novel, the question that I'm asking myself is, first off, the story at heart is what is one of the craziest experiences that have happened to this character? Why is this story the moment that we have to show for this character journey? A story generally should be the most extreme moment in a character's life. If it's not the most extreme moment, then why are we writing this story in the first place? Now, sure, you could say, well, maybe this is a setup. Maybe this is a series. Maybe this is the moment that takes place before the most extreme moment in the life. Maybe the most extreme moment happens in book 3 or book 4 of your series. Sure, you could do that. And of course, when we look at long series or fantasy series, you could argue that the most extreme moments generally happen anywhere in later on into the series. Now, my challenge to that is with book series, the overall series is generally telling a whole story. It's telling a whole character journey from start to finish. You can always argue that the first book is the start of the hero's journey. The last book is the end of it. But the first book itself still has to tell a standalone journey, a standalone story for your main hero. This has to be the first extreme moment in a series of extreme moments of the overall series. The series might be the most extreme thing that happened to the universe, but the first book has to really follow the most extreme moment for this character particularly. Now, how do we know what's the right point to start off with? So if the story is the most extreme moment in your character's journey, then the opening moment, I always like to call that our first introduction to the hero, is it's our first snapshot. It's our first image of the hero itself. And I like to take this next idea from the Save the Cat model, but I like to look at the opening moment and the closing moment. The hero starts at a certain point at the end of the story. They've gone through the whole journey of whatever they went through in the book, and they have been transformed or changed in some way, shape, or form. The opening moment is essentially showing the character not at their rock bottom, not at the lowest point, but the character at the most uninformed state of their story before they've gone through any transformation, any change, anything whatsoever. It is the character when they are still in whatever the old world of your story is. That, of course, changes for everyone. This also goes in the first act, but it is your character at a moment where they maybe ignorance is bliss, where maybe like nothing, they are not aware of anything that is going on. There's been no incidents yet. All is peachy so far, or maybe all is not so good, but this will usually then lead up to the moments that force them to then go explore another type of world. Now, for those of you who are here on our first page critique, on the first page live stream, you know that we dug into the first page and why the first page is so important for hooking in our readers. Hence why I've been having fun digging into the beginning of Last Scarecrow. So it's been fun. Awesome. I absolutely love, Courtney, that you were able to get have been getting good advice for your story for Falling for a Storm. It sounds like you're literally almost done with it. I'm eager to see how the overall project turns out, which is super cool. Very exciting when we're able to finish a full draft. Is so exciting. I know how I felt when I got to that 140,000 word mark for Last Scarecrow. It was quite a journey. Awesome. So with where I'm at with Last Scarecrow, I made a little progress yesterday. Yeah, I would say I made a little progress yesterday. So I've started to get into I've gotten into like a little bit of the meat of the first chapter. The incident, I would say this is the inciting incident. I would say this is an early inciting incident for the story with the crow stealing the Scarecrow's arm. And my focus, and this is what I like to do with my editing sessions. Let's see, I will pull up my outline. This is always something I like to show. So as I prepare for my writing and my planning for the day, here we go. I'll show this on the screen. So I'm working on chapter 1. I'm like, all right, what are my goals? Second draft, goal rewrite. First page more engaging. Check. I got that. Happy with that. Scarecrow needs to be finding himself after be asleep for a long time. Needs to be finding himself after being asleep for a long time. Yep. Okay. And this was more the description. We've gotten that. Crow needs to be kookier. All right. So that's what I'm trying to infuse right now. And let's see what else. Scarecrow stealing, crow stealing arm. And what else? Finding dead scarecrows. Okay. Because I think that will give it the vibe. So these were just a couple of the things that I know that I'm wanting to accomplish in the first chapter itself. I want to pull the reader immediately into the story. Immediately. So we're going to see how successful I am with that. Courtney, I was glad to have you there, my friend. The day that I finished the original draft of Last Scarecrow, that must have been, it was a little over a month ago. It took me about a month for getting the planning in. So I was very happy about that. Awesome. So with that being said, we're hitting a good mark. So what I'm going to do is hop into our first sprint. Excellent. So we got that. And then I will pull this up. And I'm going to pull up my map and get myself into the vibe now. Here we go. I was like, okay, perfect. So I just need to get myself into the vibe. And now I don't need that table of contents. I'm just going to pull that down. I actually think I will readjust this again. I'll pull my map up here. Just go auto crit and perfect. And I think this is going to be good. Excellent. And then I'm back to having my map. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. So I have auto crit here. Let's see. I'm in the middle of chapter 1. I was like, I want to make sure that it's big enough for you guys to see. I think 150, 125. I always try to figure out like what is the right spacing and lettering. So if you want to read, you always can. If you want to work on your own stuff and join me in the sprint, more power to you. Crow needs to be the one with no filter. Any all thoughts just come. Yeah, that's the direct. That exactly. Crow has ADHD. That's Crow exactly has ADHD. Think era. you guys know exactly what Crow's direction has to be. And then let's remember that the reason Crow is so kooky is because after being a very heroic war leader of his race, he chose the duty of leading his race and trying to save bird kind over protecting his family and his younglings, who he starts calling everyone younglings once we get far enough into the story, were all burned to death. He lost it all, and as a result, over time, he started believing that his younglings are still out there, and as such, he is essentially searching the lands for his family that has perished, unfortunately. And he believes, which is why he ended up with the last robot. The last robot sent him on a mission to find help, because the last robot's remaining power source is failing. So Crow is very, very kooky. Crow is also what's interesting is Crow is also shown as a resulting effect of what happens when you are hit by the nothingness, which we don't learn till the very, very end of the story. The mix of Crow's tragic loss and the magic of the nothingness itself has taken a very adverse effect on our young Crow, technically our old Crow, but making him lovable nonetheless. He actually used to be a very smart character too. Now he's just a very smart character who can only speak in odd sayings. All right, so let's get into it. So I got 20 minutes on the clock. Obviously, I have my map pulled up here. I like to just probably pull up this part because this is kind of where we're at now. Oh no, that's not what we want. Oh, it's like, let me grab this. I need to not touch that. Make sure I got that all right. Oh, the thing keeps changing on me. We'll do this a few times since apparently this thing's struggling. There we go. Like, let me actually change it. Okay, perfect. So with that being, I was like, clearly, all right, we are going there. All right, perfect. So I'm all set. So we got 20 minutes on the clock. Let's get some writing in. And I am all ready. Okay, so let's see what word counts we can get up to today. 20 minutes on the clock, and it's time to write now. Oh. All right, writing timer done. Writing sprint done. Wonderful, wonderful. Awesome. I feel like I was starting to make some good progress. And for those of you who aren't familiar with my writing style, whenever I start a writing sprint or whenever I start a writing session, I always like to get myself back into the vibe, back into the story by reviewing the last section that I'd written previously. Now, because I'm rewriting the first 2 to 3 chapters, this is going to be more consistent with like a normal writing experience for me. It'll be a little different when I get to the editing, which will probably be a couple chapters in, so that's going to be a little bit more editing than writing. So, but yeah, so far I'm pretty good about it. John, I saw you hopped in. Welcome, welcome, my friend. Ooh, dark comedy. Hello, 3.5 times. I think we're both in the dark comedy side. It's just Liam's POV, so he's trying to catch up to the moments. I know. Okay, so I know that was really funny. By the way, pause. Welcome, my friend. Glad to have you in in the chat. Welcome. Woo, Courtney making it to 74K. Okay, so I'll tell you guys what was funny because I started cracking myself up with this scene, and it's nothing crazy at all. But first, I want to hear, how many words did you get? What's your word count today? With that writing sprint, not too much. I got 175. I was like, okay. I feel like my first writing sprint with these 20-minute sprints is half me kind of like getting back into it. I'm gonna feel pretty good. I think the next writing sprint I'll be able to get a better word count, because I was like, okay, the next one I'll feel better about, because I'm actually kind of in the writing vibe now. So yeah, especially trying to get 2 stories done today. Wish me luck, y'all. We believe in you, Tiara. Use the force. You got it. You got it. Especially if both the stories are pretty fun too. Especially if I'm not in the mood, I'll reread and edit what I wrote the day before. Yeah, I've learned after 260 plus days of writing streams that literally makes such a difference. Makes such a difference for getting us back into the vibe. Absolutely. Perfect. Awesome. So let's see. So we're just going to take a little writing break and just stretch. We'll take like a 10-minute writing break or so, and then we'll do another writing sprint. So what was really funny is I'm writing this scene right now. I'm writing this first chapter with the Scarecrow and the Crow. This is chapter 1 of the dark fantasy novel, The Last Scarecrow. And this moment that I've written, so I've already written the very beginning. I want to say the first couple pages, I believe. There's no page breaks on this. Actually, I think you can do it if you want. Oh, interesting. This autocorrect lets you basically create the page breaks when you want to create the page breaks. Huh. Interesting. I'm going to have to play around with that. But okay, so this moment that I'm writing in the story. So the Scarecrow wakes up in the field. He's looking up at the sky, and the sky is clearly, there's something going on with this world. There's a beautiful sun. He's trying to stare into it, blinding himself almost in the process. And then the sun basically shifts to another portion of the sky, and it's replaced by a moon in a matter of moments. So something's up with the environment, with the weather today. Now, with this moment, we have the Scarecrow waking up, trying to explore himself, and he's being interrupted by this crow, our kooky crow, who's basically name calling him these random names while he's trying to remember what is going on. He remembers not having spoken for a while, but he doesn't know how long it was. Now, I was laughing because in this moment, I'm envisioning what's happening. He's kind of talking to himself, trying to remember oh, this is what I look like. This is where am I? There's this weird weather thing. And then as he's talking, he feels a tickling sensation in his arm. And he realizes that the crow is basically pecking, is basically on his arm, pecking his shoulder. And he's like, okay, that at first he's like, that hurts, but then he's like, no, that tickles. So then he keeps talking to himself, thinking he's just being a crow, until he realizes that the crow literally pecked through his arm and detached his left arm completely. And when he realizes it, he tries to grab and swipe for it, but then the crow pulls it away and he falls on his face. And I was laughing at this dark irony of the moment where it's like, okay, he's literally just woke up after he doesn't know who he is. And we just have this random crow who's basically name calling him while he's trying to get oriented after he's probably been asleep for well over 1,000 years. I think 1,000 years is probably going to be what I'll go with, something around that time period. My guess. I mean, I could do a couple hundred, but it's been asleep for longer than a century. So we'll say that. But he basically tries to grab at it. The crow's basically flying away. And then while he's laying on the ground, trying to reach for his arm, now that he only has one arm, right? Stuffing's pouring out of his straw arm. He's trying to call out for the crow, calling him for being a meanie. And the crow is still, with the arm in his mouth, is still mocking him and calling at him. And something about that moment with the crow just flying away, mocking him with the arm, was just really funny to me. And I'm like, what's the dark? I'm like, the dark part is the Scarecrow is literally a one-armed scarecrow and literally not knowing anything about this world. and then realizing that he actually doesn't know if he needs two arms or not. Oh man, I'm having fun with this moment. And I wanted to keep it, I wanted to do something where there's an immediate, so I wanted to create an immediate save the cat moment. Save the cat moments are always really fun. Save the cat moments are great. Do you know what a save the cat moment is? If I would actually love to hear, are you guys familiar with what save the cat moments are? Drop it down in the chat. So with Save the Cat, it was you unmuting to laugh at me. Oh, like perfect timing when I was writing. That's kind of funny, actually. You know what, Courtney? I'm keeping you engaged. I'm keeping you on your feet over here with your own writing. I like that. John, I think what was happening, I saw that you thought you heard ML's name out there. I think you're just putting it into the universe. I think ML's on their way to being a well-known author, if it wasn't ML. You're like, you know what? The KDP payments would probably be a lot better, right? Being a big time author. Oh man, that's funny. Is the fantasy a parable kind of story? You know what? Well, I've heard that. I want to make sure I understand what parable meaning a simple story used to illustrate a moral or spiritual lesson. What is a simple definition? A short story illustrating a moral or spiritual truth. You know what? Not unfortunately, but Last Scarecrow is anything but simple. I think the themes and the morals are actually very simple, but the story of the novel overall, it's a very, very it's dark fantasy. The novel is called The Last Scarecrow, dark fantasy novel, which actually, this gives me a pretty incredible, this is actually probably a really good time for me to check in on my blurb. I would love to hear what you think of the blurb. I'm gonna open it up. I need to make sure my blurb is awesome. I've been like reviewing it time and time again for probably well over a month now because the blurb is so important in pulling readers in. All right, let's see where it go. Blurb, blurb, blurb. Where is my blurb? Somewhere. Okay, perfect. So, all right. So it's been a couple weeks since I've checked in on the blurb. I would love your guys' feedback. Let me know how you think it sounds. Eli, yeah, it's like the inverse of the kick the dog moment. Yeah, and it's basically what you're doing is for those of you who don't know, you're basically creating a moment where your hero is it's like a singular moment where your hero is put in some type of peril or some type of situation where because your hero, and it's basically like an underdog feeling almost. It's like your hero feels like they need to be saved or they need to save themselves. It creates an immediate connection with the reader or the audience because then the audience feels sympathy for that moment. Hence, it's why it's called Save the Cat, because it feels like your hero needs to be saved in that moment. Yep. Courtney, you absolutely knew it. Yeah, I thought folk could be folktale might be parable. It usually uses animals. It can be complicated, but with simple scenes, it has layers. Yeah, and I mean that's what's interesting because most of the world of The Last Scarecrow is a mix of creatures, beasts, and animals. Out of the 28 characters in the story, I want to say that 21 of them are animals, and then 7 to 8 of them are creatures, are a mix of creatures. I don't think I have any beasts in the first book. Yeah, I don't think I've introduced any beasts in the first book very intentionally. So okay, so I'm reviewing my blurb. Let me know how it sounds, guys. It's been a week or two since I've last read it. Okay, so blurb: The Last Scarecrow, a Dawn of Magic series, book 1. The Last Scarecrow awakens to a world of ruins, fragments of tech, and creators' remains, while nature's catastrophic fury lays waste. When an eccentric crow robs Scarecrow of his arm, he embarks on a journey of self-exploration in a world full of animals, creatures, and beasts who are losing their memories while fading away from existence. Along the way, he encounters a pixie, a grizzly, a skunk, and a dragonkin, who must band together if they hope to challenge the first demon and stop him from calling upon the nothingness. And then I keep going back and forth on this last line, whether to include it. And let's see, who must band together if they hope to challenge the first demon and stop him from calling upon the nothingness that would destroy all living creatures in the lands of the last. Kind of go back and forth, deciding on if I actually like, if that extra, it's almost like, I think it's like, do there need to be enough stakes? I think I'm kind of going back and forth. What do you guys think? I know a number of you guys have probably have heard this now a number of times, but now that's been a week, now I'm like, okay, I've stepped away from it for a week. And I'm probably going to be checking in my blurb pretty consistently over, or not every day, but relatively consistently over the next, just during the second draft editing, because like the blurb is so important. If people like the cover and they like the blurb, they read the story. And that's like assuming that they don't know who you are, and assuming that you don't have name or brand recognition, the blurb has to be impactful. Yeah. So maybe it sounds like it might be fables, actually. Let's see. Parables are typically associated with Jesus and religious teachings, like John said. Chuckling between jokes. I think fables are more associated with animals. Yeah, I like that log line. Oh, thanks. Pause. I really appreciate that. I don't like the last line. I think Chat Soul had it right. You have to end with the nothingness. Yeah, what do you guys think? I'm like really curious. Do you guys think this last line is important? My fear, and this was why I added the last line, right? Whether I end with the nothingness, if they hope to challenge the first demon and stop him from calling upon the nothingness. And there. Because this gives it kind of like a sense of like the mystery of like, ooh, what's the nothingness? But if I end with this, that would destroy all living creatures in the lands of the last. It doesn't end it on the mystery. It ends it more on the stakes. The nothingness ends with the mystery and setting the stakes as, oh, what could the stakes be? Whereas this is more defining, oh, the stakes are that all creatures are going to die. But this is a little bit more unique. So I keep going back and forth on like if this type of last line is necessary or not. I can't decide. Yeah, it seems like a lot of writers have a blurb, and over the course of writing their story, it shifts away. Yeah, I had an original blurb a while back, and when I was doing the rough draft, I created a pseudo blurb, and then I wrote this one with the community. I want to say this was one of the first things that I did after I finished the rough draft. I was definitely like creating this blurb. So yeah, I'm really happy with the direction this blurb's gone. And then of course, when it goes on the book cover, for those of you who don't know, when we did the blurb review, we did the blurb and pitch fest. By the way, if you need help with writing a blurb for your book, the link for the blurb and pitch fest is down in the YouTube description. It was an absolutely phenomenal stream. It was very, very helpful for anyone working on a blurb. But something that we learned when we were researching together is that you need to, outside you need to have some type of review or reference or something that highlights some type of writing accomplishment that you've had. So I realized that when I put this on the actual book blurb, I will start with the writing stream, be like, all right, I've streamed for I wrote this over 366 days of streaming, Kauffman, like little blurb about Kauffman, and then use that since I don't have any like best-selling books or reviews. And then I follow that with the blurb. But that seems to be a standard for book blurbs and summaries. And it looks like you guys get some good recommendations. By the way, welcome, Noam. Glad to have you in the stream, my friend. Hope the schooling and the learning's coming along well for you. Let's see, Courtney. Can it be first demon and stop him from destroying all living creatures in the lands and calling upon the nothingness? Let's see. Who must band? Okay, so along the way encounters friends and a dragonkin who must band together if they hope to challenge the first demon and stop him from destroying if they hope to challenge the first demon and stop him from destroying all living creatures in the lands and calling upon the nothingness. Along the way, encounters. That's interesting. Let's see. Let me write that. So I actually think that could potentially be. We'll just go here and stop him from destroying all living creatures in the lands and calling upon the nothingness. So that one could potentially work. Obviously, like doing this is still a little wordy. So then right now these are the two options. Eli, I think could have more impact if you set up the nothingness straight away. Awoken in a world threatened by the nothingness. That's interesting. I didn't think about starting upon. Interesting. Yeah, Eli, that's a really interesting thing. I actually didn't consider starting it with the nothingness. Awoken in a world threatened by the nothingness, the destruction. That's an interesting idea. Awoken in a world threatened by the nothingness. Interesting. That would be an interesting start. Awoken in a world threatened by the nothingness. Scarecrow explores, or Scarecrow finds or sees a world full of ruins, fragments of tech, and creators' remains, while nature's catastrophic fury lays waste. That's an interesting idea. So you're using the nothingness as the initial hook instead of the Scarecrow and the state of the world. You can bookend it with a strong closing line of the destroy all living creatures in the lands of the last type of thing. Would you need to explain the nothingness if you start with it? I don't think so. I think I can use the nothingness as a world building hook without having to explain it, because I think it's like, I think if someone sees that, even if I call it out, they're like, oh, what's the nothingness? I think by not explaining it, I think it uses intrigue for readers to find out, to want to read the book. I think I'm trying to use the nothingness as an intrigue hook point. I think the nothingness is not a thing. If he wants it to have impact, explaining what it is adds to the stakes. I think the nothingness is not a thing. If he wants it to have impact, explaining what it is adds to the stakes. Also stops the stakes from feeling artificial later if they just pop up randomly. It's kind of interesting. Let's see. It's just the blurb. I'm not saying start the novel with an explanation. Yeah. And just the blurb. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, and that's kind of what it's interesting, because you're thinking like, okay, well, explore, maybe explain the nothingness more. But I think my thinking's been like, okay, if I don't explain the nothingness, the nothingness will have more intrigue by not explaining it and just like the term itself, or maybe alluding to it. Yeah, that's an interesting one. That is an actually interesting one. So let's see. So with the nothingness start, let's see where it was. I think could make. So let's see. So I will do this. Awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. Let's see. Awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. the destruction of everything. And then that leads me to the question of, do I need to explain the nothingness? I get that from Eli. I get that, but from my reader's point of view, I would ask that. Okay, I get that from that, Eli, but from my reader's POV, I would ask, what is the nothingness? And if you bookend it like that, I would have high demand for that to be very explained. Could just be me, though. Yeah, I agree. Don't explain the nothingness yet in the blurb. It's the nameless in Lord of the Rings. Interesting. And you know what? With explaining the nothingness or not, this is a really interesting, this might be an extremely subjective type of thing on what an expected reading is, right? So, and because I'm seeing both sides from you guys, which I think is actually really interesting. They mention it, but leave it to mystery. Eli, to me, it's a question of drawing on the strength of a nameless, undescribed character in Apocalypse. To me, the second is quite clearly more interesting. A nameless, undescribed character Apocalypse. So I said it might be a genre thing. I mean, I don't think it's a genre thing. I think it's more kind of be like, exactly. It is completely subjective. And I think that the thing that I ask myself is, will it pull a reader in more by using it as a nameless thing that in itself is creates intrigue? So then the question is, does the nothingness create enough intrigue without explaining it? Does the lack of not knowing it create enough intrigue, or does it create more intrigue by explaining, by saying the name and then giving a more of a hook in what it is? And that's the thing I'm not sure on. I could see myself going either way. I'm almost thinking what I might do is I'm probably going to end up writing 2 variations of the blurb and then testing it out with readers and with socials and seeing what people like more. And so you could do something like give a description of what the inhabitants of the lands of the lost think the nothingness is, the actual nothingness being close but not the same. But that's an interesting one. It's that's actually really that's a really interesting idea, actually. Let's see. Awoken. I like the mystery that's left with the nothingness. It could move me to read to find out what the nothingness is, right? And you know what's interesting is because the nothingness is actually a huge part of the plot. It is a huge part of the plot, but it's not really introduced. The nothingness itself isn't really introduced as a core plot point until about halfway through the book. I would say halfway. The nothingness becomes more predominant when we get to the midpoint, and then more predominantly in the Act 3. Let's see. To be totally honest, I'm far from the typical reader. I seem to be the minority here, but leaving the nothingness up to the reader opens you up to disappointing them. Interesting. And Eli, so this is my question for you. So when you say leaving it up to the reader, do you mean like outside of the blurb, like describing it in the story itself? Or do you mean just in the blurb, if I leave it up to the reader too, as like a hooking point? Because I actually see both sides. I see both sides of your guys' argument. I actually don't know if there's a right or wrong. Not, I don't know. I don't actually think there's the right or wrong answer to this, which is one of the things I love, right? And with things like this, right, when we come up with, because there's 2 different ideologies, and I think because the nothingness, I'm using it as one of the main hooking points for this blurb, which rightly so. I think I'm obviously using a lot of interesting things, but I think the nothingness itself can stand on its own. So let's see. So awoken into a world threatened by the nothingness. The last awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. Let's see. In this original one, awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. The Last Scarecrow. Let's see. Because I already used world. Awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. The Last Scarecrow. Actually, awoken, because I do need to have the Last Scarecrow. Awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. The Last Scarecrow encounters awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. Interesting. That's really funny, actually. I know a lot of the internet agreed with you there on pause with the whole raised parent. I agree. The fan theories were 10 times better. To be fair, Last Scarecrow isn't what I typically read. I mean, I plan to buy it. Aw, I appreciate that, my friend. But it's that just to support the community, I read romance. I totally get that. If I read the nothingness, I'm like, maybe if I knew what that meant, I'd be interested in seeing how they get out of that. Right. So then it's like, okay, then am I painting the nothingness as like, am I painting enough of the picture of the stakes of the nothingness? hmm I feel like I do a pretty good job of delivering on the nothingness. I actually do feel like I do a pretty good job, especially because of how it affects the overarching story. Yeah, actually, I'm very happy with how I touch upon the nothingness. I think I do deliver it. I think just the question I ask myself is I don't really touch upon it the first half of the book, and it's very intentionally so. I probably should reference it. I should probably reference it a little bit more periodically now that I think about it. In terms of the way, and this was something that Paul spoke to, in terms of the way the creatures of the land perceive the nothingness. That's actually something I need to bring up. Are you going to keep using the nothingness to keep bringing new readers for the next books in the series? That's a great question, Courtney. The the nothingness itself will play a part, will play a greater, more disturbing role in the later books. It absolutely will. But I don't know if I'll use that as a hook for later books, because by the end of the first book, the reader will know, at least think they know, they have an understanding of what the nothingness is. But I'm not sure if I'll use that same hook or not, because if the readers now have knowledge of it, then I'm like, okay, I'm probably gonna have to use a new way to hook and pull readers in. Oh yeah, no, I didn't think it was a criticism at all. I actually really value your feedback, Eli, and I really value all the feedback that all of you guys are coming with. This is actually really helpful to me. Yeah, everything that you guys are saying is really helpful. It kind of gives me different viewpoints to kind of think about. A world into a world threatened by the nothingness. The last scarecrow discovers. I don't know if that discovers, but discovers fragments of tech. Discovers a world of ruins, fragments of tech, and creators, and his beloved creators' remains. The last scarecrow discovers a world of ruins, fragments of tech, and his beloved creators' remains, while nature's catastrophic fury lays waste. Explores. Let's see, explores. Okay, I think explores. Okay, awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. The last scarecrow explores a world of ruins, fragments of tech. Now I've used a world twice, so I can't do that. Awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. The last scarecrow explores ruins, fragments of tech, and his beloved creator's remains, while nature's catastrophic fury lays waste. Now, does that make sense? Like, woke into a world threatened by the nothingness. It actually, I do kind of like this because this actually distinguishes the nothingness is separate from nature, which it is. I actually do kind of like that. Awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness, the last scarecrow explores ruins, fragments of tech, and his beloved creator's remains, while nature's catastrophic fury lays waste. When an eccentric crow robs Scarecrow of his arm, he embarks on a journey of self exploration in a world full of animals, creatures, and beasts who are losing their memories while fading away from existence. Along the way, he encounters a pixie, a grizzly, a skunk, and a dragonkin, who must band together if they hope to challenge the first demon and stop him from destroying all living creatures in the lands of the last. So then, if I introduced that way, in the lands of the last. So I think then it would be like that. Not at all, Eli. It doesn't come off as judgmental at all. It comes across as it's a very helpful opinion. That's a good point, Courtney. Explaining it fully in the first book makes them buy the next, see if it is then or by the end of the series. Interesting. Awoken in a world. Awoken in a world threatened by a horrifying and mysterious force known as the nothingness. And because then essentially I'm giving a little and so that's interesting because then what you're doing is giving it ambiguously defined context. Awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. Awoken in a world. Awoken to a world. Awoken in a world threatened by a horrifying, mysterious force known as the nothingness. Awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. And I think this is the thing. When somebody hears the nothingness, and I think this is the challenge. When somebody hears the term the nothingness, what does that make them think? Is the nothingness strong enough to create a reaction? Threatened by a horrifying and mysterious force. Woken to a world threatened by the nothingness. Does the nothingness itself insinuate that it's horrifying or mysterious? I think it insinuates mysterious. Nothingness, nothing is a ceaseless existence. To be nothing is to cease to exist. And I think to cease to exist is probably a terrifying concept. So therefore, the nothingness, the term itself, I think insinuates that it's a terrifying, ceaseless thing. Yeah, that makes sense. All-consuming nothingness could be a way to go. That removes the juxtaposition to the demon, which is another part of what robs the nothingness of some impact. Interesting. That removes the juxtaposition to the demon. And that's actually a good point because having the demon and the nothingness, the demon calling upon the nothingness, that's actually a very valid point. And I think I would actually frame it at the beginning for that reason alone, because then it gives the demon, which is the antagonist, a little bit more impact. So you're thinking like the nothingness, kind of like a black hole type. Yeah, it's like the end of time. Black holes are terrifying. Yeah, I agree. Interesting. Between demon and the nothingness, I'm more scared of the demon. That's really good feedback. I think of the nothingness like a black hole in the aspect that black holes suck in light and not that they really physically destroy. Okay, interesting. That's that. I absolutely love that. Let's see. Awoken to a world threatened by the terrifying, by the all destructive nothingness. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna think about that. I think for now I'm gonna just leave it with the nothingness here. I actually think, Eli, I agree with your opinion. I think the nothingness is stronger at the beginning. I think it's actually way stronger at the beginning. Not sure if I want to explain it yet, though. I need to give that some thought. But I do like it better at the beginning. Awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. All right, so actually what I should do is I probably should have the two variations of this blurb. So, all right, so we'll do variation 1. Variation uno. And then I will do this. And then let's see, along the way and stop him from calling upon the nothingness. Okay. So this was, I will do variation 1 because I think these are actually both very, very valid ideas. and then variation 2. And then maybe we have more than one variation. Maybe we get a couple. And then let's see. So variation 2 would be awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. The last scarecrow explores ruins, fragments of tech, and his beloved creator's remains. And I think, Eli, you mentioned a good idea about horrifying, the scarecrow surrounded. Yeah, I could do surrounded. The last scarecrow is surrounded. Explores is surrounded is actually better. The last scarecrow is surrounded by ruins, fragments of tech, and his beloved creator's remains. While nature's catastrophic fury lays waste. The only question I ask with myself is, if I say surrounded, then is the reader expecting Scarecrow to be physically surrounded by these things in the opening moment? Well, he's not in the initial scene. These elements are all explored in the first few chapters. So I'm like, kind of go back and forth on that. And then right now, let's see, along the way. And I think right now, I'm not going to worry about the second paragraph. I think I'm good with the second paragraph for right now. And I think what we're doing is the last one. And I think this is the second variation. You guys can't see it. Like, wrong screen view. So then I have two variations here. Then the second variation, awoken to a world threatened by the nothingness. The last scarecrow is surrounded by ruins, fragments of tech, and his beloved creator's remains. And his beloved creators desecrated. I mean, I could go darker if I go beloved creators desecrated remains. Desecrated remains. Beloved creators remains. Desecrated remains. And his beloved creator, we'll go just remains for now. And his beloved creator's remains while nature's catastrophic fury lays waste. When an eccentric crow robs Scarecrow of his arm, he embarks on a journey of self-exploration in a world full of animals, creatures, and beasts who are losing their memories while fading away from existence. Or losing their memories while they fade away while fading. Who are losing their memories while fading away from existence. Along the way, he encounters a pixie, a grizzly, a skunk, and a dragonkin who must band together if they hope to challenge the first demon and stop him from destroying all living creatures in the lands of the last. And stop him from destroying all living, and stop him from destroying the lands of the last, and stop him from destroying the lands of the last. Okay. So like I think that was some good progress. Let's see. Yeah, I agree with that. It's actually the best of both worlds. You get the mystery and the finale of the blurb is the villain. I actually I think that was a really good recommendation. I think that now I'm letting the nothingness be part of the hook along with the last scarecrow. The hook of the second paragraph is this journey with animals losing their identities, and then the hook of the last one is his companions, and then ending with the first demon, the antagonist. That's interesting. Yeah, I think so too. I think the last scarecrow is surrounded by ruins. The last scarecrow traverses, the last scarecrow encounters. Yeah, and that's why like I did that for a second, but I'm like, I'm going to step away from this for now because I think like, all right, we got another good variation here. Like I said, this will probably go through a number of variations until I end up with the final blurb. But literally the point of it is, how do I pull readers in? How do I pull readers in who don't know who I am to read the book? Must navigate into a world. The last scarecrow must navigate ruins and his I could see that because technically that is must navigate, and the first couple chapters actually deliver on that. So actually, I think I probably need to think about must navigate ruins, fragments of tech, and his beloved creator's remains. Actually, I think that's actually a much more accurate description. Eli, great suggestion. Awesome. So that was some awesome. By the way, thank you all for that. That was cool. Once again, this is why you review your blurb 100 times until you launch your book, because the blurbs are important. Absolutely. Let's see. The Last Scarecrow struggles to remember ruins. That would be another interesting one as well, because that one would also be accurate. Must navigate. The Last Scarecrow struggles to remember ruins, fragments of tech, and his beloved creator's remains. Struggles to remember. That one's accurate, but the wording on that one is a little more funkier. Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop into another writing sprint. We'll do writing sprint number 2. We'll do this as 25 minutes. We'll do it a little longer. Let's make some progress with our writing. But before we do that, are you enjoying the stream? Follow and subscribe. I'm here every day with the Right Now community. We're doing daily live stream videos to help you with the with a process, lifestyle, and mindset that it takes to write your first book, your first series, and become a full-time author. So tap those buttons and you'll be alerted when we go live. Now, we have a lot going on in the community. So now is a perfect time to touch on some of the big events we have coming up, starting with, let's do tomorrow. So tomorrow we are doing the website review stream. So do you have an author website that you need reviewed? Do you need help with your author website? Sign up now. This is going to be our live stream tomorrow. I'm partnering with WTC Creatives, a website design expert. So make sure to come drop by. And if you want to submit, links to all these events are down in the description below. This is going to be super cool. If you need help with your website, or maybe you're thinking of like, hey, maybe I should build a website or hire someone to build a website. This is perfect. When readers are interested in your book, where do you send them? You got to send them somewhere. And having the website, so important. So we'll be doing that website stream tomorrow. The submission link is down in the YouTube description. If you want to sign up, we have a couple submissions so far, but I would say definitely sign up. It'll be a great stream. And then on Saturday, we are doing, we got a couple ones. So let me go back through my forms. And then on Saturday is the story and critique show. So our story and critique show is on Saturday. Do you need feedback on your book or blurb on a book or script excerpt? This is literally perfect. If you need help with some part of your story, submit now. This is part of our story and critique show. We have critiqued and we do live readings and critiques. I've done over 150 stories now over the course of the past 29 episodes of the story and critique show. So this will be episodes, might be 30 actually. This episode's either going to be 29 or 30, I forgot. But definitely submit now. Once again, submission link is down in the YouTube description. Our story and critique shows on Saturday are so much fun. So much fun. You'll get feedback from me. You'll get help from the community. This is a great stream if you need help with a part of your story, whether if this is your first book you've ever written or whether you've written many books before. Let's say maybe you just want like some feedback on the beginning of it. Maybe there's a part you're stuck on. Submit now. Absolutely great. I'm usually able to get through a number of stories. So you submit and I see how many stories I can get through. So definitely highly recommend for Saturday's stream. And then our first major holiday event, Freaky Friday. So much fun. So this is going to be our first major holiday event. Freaky Friday, a flash fiction competition. So if you have some flash fiction, some creepy writing, horror writing chops, now's your time. You should submit. You got 3 weeks, technically 2.5 weeks now to submit. Winners, 12 finalists will win your story to be published in a flash fiction anthology, a one-on-one critique with either myself or Penelope, and a live reading of your flash fiction by a professional author. The top 4 winners who will be selected by the live stream community will win $20 gift cards. Novel character, great question. Flash fiction is considered on average, flash fiction is considered anything that's 1,000 words or less. Hence, flash is quick, flash fiction. Now, we've expanded the word count to make it a little more accessible, we've expanded our word count to support any story that is 750 to 1,500 words instead of just the normal 1,000, to make it a little bit more accessible. Essentially, a flash fiction story is a single moment, a single scene of a character that we explore. You will generally find when you try writing flash fiction, you're going to find that you'll want to tell way more than you actually have space for. So it's an absolutely great exercise, and it's usually something that could be written in an hour, a couple hours, depending on your writing speed. So highly recommend. We got about 2.5 weeks, and this is going to be our first of 3 major holiday events. So definitely submit. The submission link, like the others, is down in the YouTube description below. So definitely super fun. We got a lot going on, and we're going to be hosted by our very own Jezebel. Let me tell you, this is going to be a fiction contest to remember. The live event itself will take place Freaky Friday, will take place on Friday, October 25th. The second day of the competition, Spooky Saturday, will take place on Saturday, October 26th. And then Sunday, October 27th, we're going to have a live Freaky Friday competition after party. So it's going to be a weekend event. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll be there. It's funny. Thankfully, because I couldn't remove 200 words, all I tried. I know trying to get it under 1,000 is hard. That's why we made it that's why we pushed the cap to 1,500 to make it more accessible, because I know it's flash fiction is hard to begin with. ML, then 5 days to edit it. All right, guys, you got 2.5 weeks. So that means you got 1 day to write it and 2.5 weeks to edit it. Yeah, novel. It's pretty cool. You should definitely consider submitting. We're anticipating a very high submission rate. We're accepting very high submissions. Like I said, there will be 12 finalists. So just by being a finalist, you get some really cool things, and it's completely free. It is completely free to submit. So free submission and some really cool value. Kauffman, make some posts so we can share it on socials. Absolutely, Courtney. So we have some posts going up. You'll see it on our stream. You'll see it on our streams once we start posting it. I will probably start doing the socials posting next week once we get through the website stream and the critique show this week. So you'll definitely see it. I'll make sure to let you know so that way you guys can reshare. Absolutely. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So we can get as many participants as possible. Yay. That's super awesome, ML. Glad to have you aboard. Glad that you gave a shot at flash fiction. And then you just have to remember that the genre is, so we're saying spooky, the specific elements is the story has to touch upon thriller, horror, mystery, or supernatural. Has to touch on one of those genre elements for it to be eligible. Otherwise, Miss Jezebel might not accept it. Woo, I know, almost. We're getting close to the 500 sub count. I was like, I don't know. All right, let's see where we're at. So YouTube channel, because we're close. So we're getting close. So YouTube channel, we're at 479 right now. So we're getting close. So that's about 21 away. Probably get there in about a week and a half, give or take. Woo, novel. That'd be cool if you do a vampire story. You should definitely do a vampire story. We would love that. Vampires would be fun. Yeah, anything that, and that's why we include, like, you could go like a full on like horror, something like serial killer, real world, or you could go something spooky. You could do a ghost story. You could do something spooky. You could go more the fantastical vampires, werewolves, magic, whatever your heart desires, which is why we've really opened it up to those 4 genres. All right. And I've also promised once we hit 500 subscribers, I will be launching the Right Now Discord. I'll be launching the Discord for the community. So once we hit 500, 21 subs away, I will launch the Right Now Discord channel. I specialize in urban fantasy, so it's my go-to. Ooh, that's exciting. So this might be right up your alley. Ooh, ML, Courtney. Sounds like you guys might have you guys might have some good competition here. Novel, that's awesome. I hope we'll get to see a story from you. It sounds like this is going to be right up your alley. I enjoyed writing the flash fiction so much, I might try to write my 3 other options I had when I wrote the one I sent. Well, you got 2.5 weeks. Like, you know what? I think I wrote one that just sounds better. Well, we have said that you can only submit one. So everybody can only submit one story. If in 2 weeks you feel like there's a better piece of flash fiction that you would rather submit instead, we will let you resubmit it if you want to replace it with an alternative one. I'm fine with that. So we're absolutely fine. However, we will only be accepting one final submission from anyone who participates, because we want to make it as fair as possible. I mean, Eli, you could that could be a win for it, in honesty. Like, that totally could be a win. I would say, like, make it as unique as possible. Penelope and myself are grading. So we're refining the submissions to the finalists based on 3 guidelines. Readability. Please make sure the story is edited. So readability is the first guideline. The second guideline is the use of the spooky genre element. And then the third guideline is style, right? How well is their character development? How much world building is used, plot and dialogue, and so on. So we're basically going to be choosing the submissions to the finalists based on those 3 guidelines. And then the finalist stories, the 12 finalist stories, are going to be voted on by the community. So whoever is here in the live streams during the events itself are going to get to vote on their favorite stories. Similar to what we did during the Blurb and Pitch Fest, when everyone got to vote on their favorite blurbs. And like, that was really great. That was a really, really great one. That worked out really well. I think we all had a lot of fun voting on the different like blurb ideas and the different stories. Not the blurb pitch fest, the story idea. The story idea, when we voted on different story ideas that we thought would be fun. I know, that's the best part, when we have a really cool character that we want to write more about. Oh, Courtney, you're like, the flash fiction you sent in was a masterpiece. All right, my friends. So that was awesome. With that being said, let's get into the next writing sprint. Let's do it. So let's get some more words on the clock. I need to get back into Crow stealing away Mr. Scarecrow's arm. Let's see, that was good. I don't need that anymore. Table of contents, we just drop that. Perfect. All right, so we're back with our Lands the Last. Awesome. Let's go back here. And we're going to do 25 minutes for this next sprint. Perfect. 25 minutes on the clock. Okie dokie. Let's do it. Let's roll. And awesome. So 25 minutes. I think I'm all set. And let me pull this up. All right. I think I'm all ready. And it's time to write now.
Legends echo strong as the dawn breaks free. With the hero song, destiny to see. Stand and rise, face the dark, light the skies, leave your mark. Eyes on the prize, heart beats hard, dreams to realize, play every card. The wind whispers brave, the stars guide the way, no soul left to save. Time to make
All right. And that is time. That is it. Wonderful. I finished the first chapter. Oh, all right. I'm like, I feel good. Feel accomplished. I was like, I feel pretty happy. I finished the first chapter. I'm like very, very happy. I was trying to decide how I wanted to end it. The first chapter is going to be relatively shorter, intentionally so. I'm pretty happy. I came up with I figured out how I wanted it to end it on a slight cliffhanger. So that was fun. And let's see, I did 533 words. So little slightly better word count that time. How did that writing sprint treat you? Were you able to get some more words in? Woo, 318 words. Yay. And I'm making a little bit of progress. I'm like, awesome. I finished the chapter. I was like, do I like it? I was like, do I like the way that I ended it off? I originally called it the first field. I think I need to actually rename it. Chapter 1, need a hand. Oh god. Play I'll name it on a starting with a pun, need a hand. All right, we'll see if I like that one. Okay, so yeah, so I'm pretty happy with that. I actually think I like that the first chapter is going to be a different is relatively shorter, then that means chapter 2. All right. And let's see. So this is normal. All right. Interesting. So it looks like this thing randomly lets you do page breaks whenever you want. And I mean, I guess that actually doesn't really matter where the page breaks are right now. I like to just do the page breaks after the chapter. So I guess I'm actually fine with that. I was like, what did I have chapter 2 called? I need to pull up my outline. Chapter 2 called The Forest of Lost Bones. Interesting. Do I still want that to be the title? Yeah, I think I'm good. Well, I'll have that as my working title for now. Chapter 2, The Forest of Lost Bones. Awesome. Yeah, I felt good. Got some good words that time. Let's see. Courtney, my bad, 215 words. Nice. Excellent. Yeah, that'd be cool. By all means, I think experimenting and trying different things could be super fun, Eli. Definitely looking forward to hearing it. Let's see, wrote 519 words. Excelente. Excelente. So Tiara, sounds like you and me kind of got some similar word counts that time. Wonderful. We're making a little bit of progress, which is good. Yeah, I really enjoy chapter names. I've always really loved giving chapter names. I feel like because why name a chapter? Then you're essentially using the name as a hook. I like hooking readers in with a name. I think it's really fun. That's something that I've always enjoyed with reading experiences personally. Maybe it's a fantasy thing. I know it's not just fantasy name for like naming chapters, but I think I've just always enjoyed it from fantasy books. Yeah, probably. I think the interesting thing with autocrat is they actually have a formatting option here as well for ebooks. So that's probably something else I'll explore at some point with their formatting options. Like I love chapter titles, but I'm so bad with titles to begin with. I can never commit to naming chapters in a novel. I had fear of them like not being good names. I could totally say that. How do I come up with the chapter titles? Good question. So obviously I have, well, let's look at just some of the titles that I've done with. And I can actually tell you what my strategy is with that. It's pretty easy. Originally, the chapter title was called The First Field. I tentative name, I'm going to call it a need a hand. That's a little bit more intriguing. Chapter 2 title is The Forest of Lost Bones. Chapter 3 is the First Sands of Summer. Chapter 4, The Caves of the Last. Chapter 5, The First Snows of Summer. Chapter 3 and 5, I need to rename one of them. Chapter 6, A Curious Case of Mr. Crow. So essentially what I'm doing is I am asking myself, what is the central theme? What is either the central theme or the core plot point that I'm exploring in that chapter? Now, if I know what the central theme or the core plot point is, then I can distill that into an idea. If, let's say, like chapter 6, right? The Curious Case of Mr. Crow. So this is my inciting incident chapter. So I know there's something that happens with Mr. Crow. So I knew that I wanted the chapter title to be a hook, because essentially the chapter title is a hook to the theme or the plot for the chapter. If the chapter title is a hook, then you just ask yourself, either you do a name that's straightforward and you're calling it out for what it is, or you're using the chapter title as an intrigue to be like, oh, what does that mean? How does that refer to the chapter? And then sometimes that makes the reader of like, oh, I want to read this even more because that chapter title now is intriguing to me. And it's creating it's almost like a foreshadowing. Almost thinking like the chapter title is the foreshadowing element for the chapter itself. I think that's a good way to look at it. Hey, what's up, engineer? Hello, chat. I finally started chapter 2 of Dragons of Steel. Started the flash fiction thing. Yay, that's awesome. Glad that you're joining us in the flash fiction contest and that you're making progress with Dragons of Steel. Dragons of Steel is a super cool story. I'm looking forward to seeing how it comes along. What do the numbers next to the names mean? So this was actually great question. The numbers next to the name. This was actually more, so these were more for my reference. I wouldn't even worry about these. The numbers themselves, that was my original page number for the original draft. So, and this was just something I was trying to keep track of for myself because I don't like to have chapters that are extremely different lengths. I know, I want it to evolve over the course of the story. I like to try to keep them around similar-ish lengths. And this is just a personal thing. This is just me, an OCD thing with the chapter number. So that's why I use this as the page count on the rough draft. Obviously, like the page count for a lot of these are going to change. What does matter is these beats. Like Act 1 open, that is a core beat of the structure, which is important. Inciting incident, that is a core beat of the overall story. That is important. The end of Act 1, core beat of the story. That is important. So great question. I like naming chapters because it's easier for me to remember such reference in my own thoughts. In my own thoughts. Also, I'm a huge fan of utilizing as many distinct points of info to present information to the reader. Yeah, agreed. In my books, I just enjoy when the chapter title is the name of the POV. But in my genre, the chapters aren't named. Yeah, and I mean, that's more common for romance, but also think like one of my favorite books, like Game of Thrones, the chapters don't have chapter titles. The chapter titles are the names of the characters because there's so many characters POV. So I think it's personal preference for authors. And honestly, I think chapter titles is a personal preference. The only issue is I had the idea for a second novel. I may write before that. Well, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea to get ideas and develop for the second novel, which is awesome because then you're crafting out the overall world of the story. I think the only thing that I caution is like do the development, do the planning for it. Just don't let the ideation, the development for the second book pull you away from making progress on the first book. If you're the type of writer engineer who you're like, yeah, no, I can outline, I can do all the things and I won't lose motivation, then by all means go for it. Or if you're the type of writer who if I start more, I might get distracted. Or if you're like, hey, I need to develop the overall world for me to feel more confident about writing the first book. So I think it just comes down to being intentional more than anything. I know a lot of writers like to write all the first couple books of a series before they even publish. So I know there's definitely a strategy behind that. ML, the first chapter of my novel, Dead Caster, was called What Could Go Wrong? I was like, that's a great chapter title. You're like, yeah, I like that. Awesome. So we've gotten some really, really great work today. Absolutely great writing, great conversations, and always great chat. But as we hit this part of the stream, it is time for creative writing on the morrow. So make sure that if you are interested in any of our upcoming events, the author website review stream will be back tomorrow for the website review stream, which is at, when did I do tomorrow's stream? So the website review stream is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Come join us. Come join us, whether you want your website reviewed or you just want some practical tips to help you when you start working on your website. It will be incredibly helpful. So come join us tomorrow. We'll be here for the second website review stream with WTC Creatives. And then also, if you need help with the story excerpt, submit for the Saturday Story and Critique Show, and then keep on working on those flash fiction, my friends. We got 2.5 weeks to submit. All the links for all the submission links are down in the YouTube description down below. And most importantly, if you enjoyed the stream, if you got value out of it, whether from the community, the writing sprints, my craziness, or anything else, tap that like button. Let me know that you enjoyed the stream. Help me show the algorithms that writing streams are cool. All right. And that brings us to the end of the stream. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends. It has been awesome. I always love chatting with all y'all. And I got to finish the first chapter. And thank you for the help with the blurb. That's awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll get to play around with our blurbs many more times over the next couple months. All right. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, my friends.